the Niners are all about their number one defense. And they say stuff like, well, we can't go after, they don't say stuff, but their fans say stuff like, well, we can't go after Lamar Jackson because then we'd have to take a step back on defense. God forbid the Niners didn't have the number one rated defense in the NFL. Like, that's the end game here. Do you think that the Niners are a little too caught up in their defense and maybe should look at the landscape and say, you know what, maybe we should focus on getting the number one offense, maybe take a step back on defense?
Yeah, it's only if you think you're going to have the pathway to get that quarterback that we talked about, that top 6. That's pretty much, that's the only reason why you take that step back. You don't do it for someone that's like top 10, top 12, right? Like, you don't do that for someone who's like a Dak Prescott. It's not going to work because they have a good defense. They have sufficient playmakers, adequate enough. I know it's more top heavy and stuff with Pollard and CeeDee Lamb, but yeah, it's like you're not going to really win too many playoff games with the Dak Prescott or some of those players. And Dak's like an 8 to 10 range quarterback, I think. It's really got to be, if it's going to be someone who is that top 6, 7 like quarterback, that you're willing to invest all that money, is because the reason why you take that step back on defense is you're going to lose those 2 to 4 players that you would normally pay and give it to the quarterback. And it's worth it because it's so influential and they can make up so much. And the point of the game is to score points. And that's what he does. That's what the quarterback does. Where the defense is great, you want someone to limit them, but as long as they limit them, slow them down, and make it and give your offense, your presumed top 6, 7 quarterback, extra possessions to get you points, then you're all gravy. You're fine. And that's what Lamar would provide, or that's what Jalen Hurts is providing to the Eagles. That's why they weren't out of it in the end. Really, what in that Super Bowl really made them like get screwed over. It wasn't as much people want to say the holding or whatever. It pretty much was kind of Jalen Hurts' fumble sack that went for a touchdown. So I think that's where that's really the only way you can peel it back. Not to get someone who's top 10 or 8 to 10. It has to be literally like, this guy's elite, which is Lamar Jackson. So it makes sense to do a full court press and get him in your ranks.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how the Niners defense could really get better than it was last year. I mean, they had the number one defense last year. It got ran through by Philly and Kansas City. They couldn't do anything against those guys. Philly blew them off the ball. They were not good enough in the trenches. So it seems like, I don't know that you can ever have an elite defense in the NFL today. All the rules are against you. You can't touch the quarterback. You can't touch the wide receivers. I mean, so many refs can throw flags on you every freaking play, and they just pick and choose when to do it.
They did in the Eagles game. It was so janky. Like, it was like, are you serious? And it's like, is the mob in it? It's
how many drive extending calls were called against the Niners after? You know what I'm saying? It's just going to keep happening.
It's just the reality of the league. The refs suck, and if they're going to call bad calls, it's typically going to be the defense.
Go on the defense. He's going to go on the defense, and you keep seeing it in playoff games. Yeah, me too, right? But that's what the league wants. The final score of the Super Bowl this year was 38-35. They want that. They would rather it be 43-40, and it's going to be like that in the future. So you can keep trying to fight it, or you can just acknowledge it. And again, Kyle, you're supposed to be a genius. You have all this talent on offense. Why not put it all together and make it something special? Like, Andy Reid isn't over trying to win with his defense in Kansas City. They brought him there to be dominant on offense. The Niners hired you to be dominant on offense. What are you doing? I mean, Mike McDaniel didn't go to Miami and be like, hey, guys, we're a defensive team. What are you talking about? No, you're not. You're not. And any team that wants to be a defensive team in 2023 is wasting its freaking time. Even Pete Carroll in Seattle understands that their offense needs to be the catalyst of their freaking team. Pete, the defensive coach. So,
yeah, because McDaniel's in Miami, he wouldn't do it. He traded for Tyreek, signed Raheem Mostert, traded for Jeff Wilson mid-trade. Everything they did, Teron Armstead, everything they did that was a splash or a transaction, acquisition, anything was 90% skewed to the offense.
And what's crazy is, like, the Niners understand, they say stuff like, it's a quarterback league, but that's why we're so into defensive linemen, because that's the great equalizer. You got to either have the quarterback and hit the quarterback. What about protecting the quarterback? How do they forget about that? That should be more. It should be quarterback, O-line, D-line in that order. But for the Niners, O-line is like way at the bottom, and I will never understand that. I don't get that. Until they really invest in their O-line, it's hard to take them seriously. Philly invests in their O-line. Kansas City invests in its O-line. Those two have two of the best O-lines in the league. Kansas City lost a Super Bowl, and they're like, we're never letting that happen again, the way it happened. And all of a sudden, they made huge investments in their O-line. Look at them now. Look at them now.
And someone like Lamar, he could like, dance around a little bit to hold up on those pass rushers. Although a bunch of games I watched him last year, and it kind of seemed like he was holding on the ball too long, and maybe almost like I kept saying like Lamar, it feels like you're messing around too much, and maybe what we alluded
Fields
to
does
about
that
like
too.
Defensive linemen are more faster, and so it's like, oh crap, these guys are faster than I would have anticipated than I did like 2 years ago. So
yeah,
it's you kind of hope that with the Kyle Shanahan scheme, it's like, all right, we're gonna get you more balls out of your hand quickly. So hopefully these defensive linemen get screwed more in terms of like you can't just commit and shoot at